Welcome to Education Influencers with Dr. Carla Sparks. Today, my special guest is Dr. Lakeisha Cook. Dr. Cook has had an interesting journey in her educational career that has taken her from Florida to Texas and back to Florida. She is a transformational education leader, a strategic innovator in student achievement, a champion for equity and sustainable growth who is building thriving school communities. She has been a teacher, a turnaround principal, a founding principal, and now a regional vice president of schools at IDEA Public Schools. Welcome, Dr. Cook. Welcome, Dr. Cook. It's so wonderful to see you. Welcome to Education Influencers, and thank you very much for joining me today.
You're so welcome. I'm super excited to be your guest today on Education Influencers. Super exciting for the opportunity. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, yes. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. And I want to start by talking a little bit about earning your doctorate and what doors have opened for you since then, which I believe was 2021 when you completed. So it's been a few years now. What doors have opened for you to make a difference in the larger education community?
Well, when I was earning my doctorate, I was a principal at a turnaround school in San Antonio during my degree. So I served there until February or March of 2024, which was a super exciting opportunity. After earning my doctorate degree, I was able to join the adjunct faculty staff at NLU, which is one of the highlights of my career, and also serve as a dissertation chair and dissertation committee member. That has been very rewarding. In February of 2024, I was named as the launching school principal for IDEA Public Schools here in Lakeland, Florida. It was the first K through 6 launch in IDEA's history, I believe. And it was also my second school launch in my career so far. And in July of 2024, I was promoted to the regional vice president of schools for IDEA Tampa and Lakeland. And so just in a few short years, I've been able to get some of my dreams realized, and I'm super excited about the opportunities that NLU has afforded me.
That is really exciting to be a transformational principal, to be a founding principal, to launch a new school, to be promoted so quickly. I remember when I met you, you were teaching, I believe it was middle school. And I could tell from some of the discussions that we had at that time that you were already making an impact and that you were educating, or not you were educating, but you were also influencing not only your students, but the other educators around you. So tell us a little bit about how and where you influence education.
That's a great question. I believe that I have a non-traditional answer because I always do. But I educate and influence education in high needs communities of promise, is what I like to call them. I've served predominantly in the low SES, Black and Brown communities, low income, large populations of ELL scholars, and also ESD students as well. And I really enjoy the work that I do there in those communities. I think the next question was, how do I influence them?
Mhm.
I live in the communities that I serve in. And by doing that, I am able to connect with our kids, with the families, and the community at large to educate, to advocate for them and empower them. These are my communities. I come from the same or similar situations, and I share their challenges. As a Black female with a doctorate degree who came from a challenging background, I recognize that I am the role model, that I am the beacon of hope and living proof that high poverty doesn't mean low promise. There are thousands of proof points that come to our schools every single day, which is why I love the work that I'm doing. I recognize that I empower, that I change lives one day, one child, one adult, because I work now with lots of adults, and one family at a time. The incremental change that leads to lasting impact is the legacy of excellence and change lives that I really pride myself in being able to be a part of. I don't know a very concrete answer, but it was the best way that I could summarize the work that I do from my heart every day.
I love what you just said. And I want to pick out one particular aspect of it. You said that you live in the communities that you serve. So I understand the real importance of that. I also understand the perhaps inconvenience of that because that means every time you change roles or positions, you move. So, how does that go?
That is accurate. And when I worked in Florida, I lived in the community that I worked in. I moved to San Antonio, Texas, and I worked in the east side of San Antonio. So conveniently, I was able to find a place in the east side of San Antonio that I absolutely adored. And moving back to Florida, now in Lakeland, I do live in the community that my school is in Lakeland. It makes it a little inconvenient for working in Tampa at times because I can't live in both now that I'm here. But as a school leader, I found it very important to live in the communities that I served. And I believe that it just so happened that God placed me in a position where I was able to find housing that I adored and being able to really just get there and interact and become part of the fabric of the community. I don't know that it's been inconvenient, that it's just been a really life-changing experience for me and an opportunity that I'm super grateful for, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. That's a lot of movement and a lot of change for you for the sake of other people. And I really admire that. I have known only a few people who have intentionally moved into the community where they were leading in education. And I have seen the impact that that kind of commitment can have. I don't know what greater commitment you could possibly have. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. What would
Thank
you
you.
Well, of course, of course. What has been the most impactful change you have made in the realm of education during these last 4 years?
The most impactful change, hopefully this doesn't sound cliche, but the most impactful change for me has been leaving communities better than I found them. That means leaving the kids, the teachers, the families, the auxiliary staff, the leaders better than I found it. That is the purpose for me being in education. And when I think about the impact that I have that ties back to that why, that has been the most impactful change for me is being able to leave communities and people better than I found them by instilling hope and promise and a spirit of excellence. I think that's what I'm really, really proud of.
And you should be. I've met a number of your teachers that have worked under your leadership, and they adore you. And they talk about your level of excellence and your expectations, and they're trying to rise up to that same level. And so I would not say that was cliche at all. I would say that is exactly accurate based on my own observations of the people whom you lead. So I think that's really exciting. And you said something that I really care about also, and that is impacting one person a day. We have an opportunity to see so many people, especially when in the communities where you and I live in the Tampa area, the Lakeland area. Those are so highly populated and we see many people. But if you can change one life, in a day, that's an amazing thing. And I appreciate you bringing that out. That's a really significant point, I think, in your journey. So, tell us about your current work as a top leader of an educational organization.
Oh, I have so many feelings and emotions about this quite often. I think the best way to describe it is it's invigorating for the majority of the time. It's inspiring. It's high pressure for sure, which I thrive on for some reason or another. But most of all, I have fun doing the work that I do. There's a lot of systems and strategy work that has to happen on a daily basis to strengthen systems that are in place and to create systems that are not yet there that need to be there. There's policy work that has to happen, and some of those things aren't always as fun because they aren't the nuts and bolts of the work that we do every day. But it's critical now that I'm a change leader at the top. I do believe that this is a change leadership cycle on repeat because there is so much change that happens in education, and some of which we're prepared for, but there's so much that we're not prepared for. And I really have found myself having to navigate as a change leader day in and day out and think about the systems of change and how to get through it so that we are successful and we don't adversely impact the kids that we work so hard to serve. There's a lot of community relationships and impacts and considerations for the decisions that we make at the campus level, at the regional level, but also I found myself having to navigate the changes that are being made at the state and the national level, even the customer satisfaction that comes with that. Parents are happy a lot of the times, but there are also times where they're not very happy and having to navigate through those customer satisfaction points. And then just having the political acumen that is required to navigate the space in some really challenging times has been one of the things that I've most recently had to grapple with is how do you navigate this space in places where you may or may not agree, and you have to do what's best for all kids while keeping in touch with the spirit of the laws and the spirit of the educational climate that just continues to change. And that's proved to be really challenging. But overall, as a top leader, I believe that it is just a continuous experiment in educational change. I often refer back to my dissertation and thinking about that as a change leadership project. And I really correlate the work that I do with that project. And now it just comes alive every day, intentionally or unintentionally, which is kind of ironic because in that process, I don't know that I expected that the change leadership project would become the central part of my work and helps to guide me as I'm making decisions, as I'm involved in the decisions that are being made, and then as I have to implement them at the regional level now.
You know, someone said that if there's anything we can count on in our life, some constant thing in our life, it is that things will change. And I don't think that any of us really looks forward to that or expects it even or understands how that happens. And I think that the conversations that we had while you were working on your doctorate about change leadership involved helping other people to manage their emotions through change because change is a very emotional experience for almost all people. And so, if you're the leader of people who are frustrated, confused, angry, all kinds of negative things, I mean, sometimes even when a change is a positive change, it still evokes some negative reactions. So, how do you school yourself to be stable and lead those people through that and help them get through that negative part of, okay, we've got to face this change now.
Yeah, I think first just going through those emotions myself, understanding that everyone is entitled to their emotional response. And if it evokes an emotional response from me, then it means that other people will likely have an emotional response. So, how am I going to navigate this situation myself? And then how will I empower and communicate the change to others? The way that I've learned to do that is starting with the why. Why is this important? Why is this critical? And what is the impact this is going to have on the kids that we serve every day? And so, regardless of the decision or the change that has to be made, I do my best to ground it in what's best for kids and let that lead the work, because ultimately that's what we're here for. That's who we're here for, right? Is for the children that we serve every day. And thinking about the decisions that are being made, as long as they're good for kids, then I can typically find a why and find a way for me to communicate it to other people so they embrace the spirit of the change in that way. Also, recognizing that people aren't always going to be excited about the change. Sometimes it's just having a conversation or referring them to a book. I like to use Who Moved My Cheese? And that is a book about change leadership. And that is how do people experience and navigate through the change, whether we know it's coming and we embrace it, or whether we decide that we don't want to embrace it right now. Change is inevitable, and we just have to get people to either buy in or recognize that sometimes change isn't meant for them and they have to buy out, and that's okay too.
That's a really fair point. Some buy in and some buy out. I love that you talked about giving people the why, that sense of need or urgency to make change and helping them to understand that. I'm going to bring up something from the past now. I hope you like this. When you were a student working on your master's degree is when I actually met you. And you were a classroom teacher, and there was a day toward the end of the program where I came in the classroom and I sprung a surprise on your class. And most of the people in that room had a frightened slash worried slash surprised expression on their face. And I remember you took half a beat, stood up among your peers, and said, "All right, everybody, let's get our high heels on and go." And at that moment, I knew that there was something very special about you in your ability to be resilient right in the very moment with a really quick positive response and to influence other people. And so I think you just talked about that. And I just wanted to bring up that example because I have never forgotten that moment about you. It has stuck with me, and I've repeated it to other people in different ways on different occasions because it's such a good example of coping, right? Get out your high heels, put them on, and let's go. It's metaphorical or real, both sometimes, but it means, getting yourself together and moving forward, because what is the other choice, right?
And I think, Carla, that it's been the story of my life, so it's easy for me to navigate the changes that come. Earlier in our conversation, I mentioned that I am from a challenging community, that I grew up through adversity and challenge, and navigating that change has just been the story of my life, which I believe has helped to mold me into the leader that I am today, and has helped me to say, you know what? Okay, this is the challenge. Like, we rise to it. Let's get up. Let's face it. Let's do it with grace. Let's do it with dignity. and we move on and we continue in the spirit of excellence every single day. And that's what I appreciate most about the communities of promise that I serve in, is because these families that I serve, they are faced with so many challenges that have to be navigated every day with the spirit of excellence, with the spirit of hope, with dignity, with respect. And so sometimes we navigate these challenges and think that it's, oh, woe is me, and what am I going to do? When we take the stance of complaining, and we can just be a complainer or we can be an improver. And so what are we going to do about it? And I think that's where I like to live, in the lane of, okay, so what now? What? This is the challenge that we're presented with. We can rise to the challenge and we can, persist through it, or we can let it defeat us. But either way, in the moment, as a leader, I often just have to rise to the occasion. And I think that's part of what I enjoy most about the work, is the challenges that come and persisting through them and helping others to learn to lead with grace and understand that change is inevitable, and we embrace it and we move on, because that's the lives that our kids and our families deal with every day. And if we really want to make an impact, we also have to model that resilience and that grace and integrity that it takes to take a licking and keep on ticking, so to speak, Carla.
You just said something that I think is noteworthy, because many of us think about change as, oh, we got to bear up against it, grit our teeth, and there is a level of perseverance that's absolutely necessary in dealing with change. But I heard you say that you look forward to the next challenge. And that is a whole different level of thinking about facing change. That's like looking forward to it almost, even though sometimes it's not exactly the change that we were hoping for.
For sure. But I think most importantly, it's about realizing that change is inevitable. Change is going to come, and growth comes from change. The discomfort of change often equals the greatest amount of growth that is experienced. And I believe that looking forward to the change is also me looking forward to the growth and to the opportunity that comes with it. And it's a mindset. We can change our mindset and change the way that we embrace the idea and the concept of change, or we can stay in this fixed mindset where we're afraid and intimidated by change. Either way, it's a conscious choice. However, we know that the change is going to come, and if we stay ready, we don't have to get ready for the change that is inevitably ahead of us.
That is an approach and a mindset that I think we can all learn from. And I appreciate being able to learn from you and be encouraged by you. So thank you. Thank you for that, for everything you just said. That's really impactful for me. And I think for the listeners here too. So I want to bring up something good that has happened recently. So you became a charter member of the National Louis University Florida Alumni Association, and you also were inducted into the Hall of Fame based on the amazing work that you have done as an education influencer. So tell us a little bit about that experience and how it felt to be informed you were going to be inducted and then being inducted. What was that like for you?
It was incredibly exciting. I was honored, and I felt such a sense of pride and accomplishment for the work and the contributions that I've made to the educational sector. And I was extremely proud to be a graduate of NLU. I have, gosh, how long have I been at NLU now? Since master's, since a master's degree, educational specialist, doctorate, so I've been at NLU for a long time. And so I really felt honored and privileged to be inducted and to be recognized. I also felt a sense of belonging and a sense of worth and purpose through the recognition and the induction. My family and friends shared with me. They're so excited. They continue to be excited for me. My godmom traveled from North Florida and she had to go somewhere else, but she made it a point to be there. My family, my kids, they always celebrate me. So I'm so excited to be able have a village of supporters around me to help ground me in the work, celebrate the success, and keep me encouraged as I go through my day to day. NLU is my second home away from home, and I just felt at home. I think there was a question that was asked there, like, how do you feel being here today? And it felt like coming back home. So I was really excited and continue to be honored.
Oh, well, congratulations on both the charter membership and the induction into the Hall of Fame. I love the answer that you just gave, the way you talked about feeling that sense of belonging and reward for all the hard work that you've done. I think many people, especially our audience for this podcast, understand the hard work that it takes to be an effective educator at any level, in any role that occurs in a school or an organization, and can be quite a thing to endure at times. And then when we have those moments to celebrate the accomplishment, I think that helps us to be inspired to keep going. And I was there that day. I saw your fan club that came, and they were definitely proud of you and supporting you. I think you had, not that there was any kind of competition going on, but I think you had the biggest fan club of anyone that was in the room that day. And they were definitely amazed. You mentioned that your children were there. And I think that sometimes we forget that celebrating our own successes is not a selfish thing, because
Mhm.
it's an example to those who follow about what they might be able to achieve. And I've had that
I,
conversation.
I agree. I'm sorry to interrupt. I really, that really resonates with me. I don't often celebrate myself. And even through this award, I was like, oh, I'm being recognized for this. And everyone around me was like, that's such a big deal. What do you mean we're coming? So the principals that came with me, there was a teacher that came to celebrate with me. There was Marvin, he graduated, he was there. So it was just a really, really great day. But most importantly, what happened that day was some of the people who came with me were re-inspired to go back to school, to finish their doctorate degree, to finish their educational journeys. Some of them connected with other NLU alumni that were there to further their reach in education or to partner. And so it just turned out to be such an amazing day, more than I could have ever anticipated. But the fact that you named celebrating your success, yourselves is okay. I don't always take the time to do that. And I don't know that in education, we always take the time to celebrate ourselves, to celebrate our own success. But it's so incredibly critical to keep going because the work gets long, it gets arduous. And to take those moments just to say, you know what? I am doing a good job today really, really helps to propel you forward.
I couldn't agree more. I appreciate your perspective on that. It's something that I've been thinking about lately, because you're right, what you just said. We often just keep marching forward. We don't stop to go, oh, look what happened. Look what happened today, you know? And just this morning, I was telling a family member, oh, what a great Monday morning it is. I've had 4 emails that indicate success among my students, and I'm about to interview Lakeisha. It's a wonderful Monday. And so I'm trying to remember what you just said, to stop and think about things that have gone well, even if there's not a ceremony or a big to do like the induction ceremony was. I think it's really important that we do think about what difference have I made today? And it could be
Mhm.
a small difference to us, but it might be a big difference to the person who received that encouragement or that challenge, or as what you just shared, that some of the people who were with you that day that you were inducted into the Hall of Fame were making connections and making decisions about their own future because they were inspired by what they saw happening with you. I love
Okay.
that. I love that.
Yes.
That makes it the success multiplies, right? Your success
Great.
multiplies when you share it with other people. And
Absolutely.
that's just amazing. Thank you for sharing
Yes.
that.
Of course.
So, I want to know what suggestions you have for educators who want to be change makers and influencers like you, or maybe in a completely different way than you, but they care about making change and having an influence in a positive way on people or education as an entity. What would you say?
I would say you're already doing it.
Mhm.
Don't overthink it. Have fun every day. Have fun. Take care of yourself, but don't make it about you. I think starting every week, reconnecting to your why and letting that feed your soul, your passion, and your spirit is important. Keep going when it doesn't feel good, when it doesn't feel easy. Persevere through the politics, through the bureaucracy, the headache, the heartbreak. Always do what's best for kids and ground yourself in that. Give yourself grace. Every day is significant. And I don't know if you were looking at my notes, Carla, but every day is significant. I wrote down that I wanted to make sure that I said was to take note of the small incremental wins. The little moments often turn out to be the most life-changing moments in someone else's life. And celebrate yourself, celebrate other people, but don't forget to celebrate all of the things along the way. That's what I would say. You're already doing it. Just keep going. One day, one moment, one person at a time. Greatness has already come from within.
Thank you for that wonderful advice. I really, really appreciate that. I think that is going to resonate with our listeners. I know it resonates with me. And I think this is a really high point for us to end our discussion. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing, for what you continue to do every day. Thank you for inspiring me. And thank you for those words of encouragement just now.
Thank you. It's my honor and my privilege. Thank you for having me as a guest today.
You are most welcome. I'm so glad you came.